I wanted to introduce the people who will be participating in our seminar. The first one is our lecturer, Dr. Rajan Kumar. He's a lecturer in Material Science and Engineering Department and serves as the MatSci Director of Undergraduate Studies. He teaches several undergraduate courses in the department and supervises our undergraduate research programs, such as the MatSci REU program, the MatSci Honors program, and the new MatSci URGE program. And then we have a few panelists here today. The first one is Alden. She's an undergraduate student. She has participated in the 2020 REU program in the McIntyre group. And then we have Sahil, who is a third-year PhD student in the daunting group. And then we have Devi, who's a fourth-year PhD student in the Chu group. And then finally, Olivia, who is a third-year student in the Apple group. And I'm Melody. I'm a third-year student in the GU group, and I will be moderating today. So with that, I will let Dr. Raj begin with the seminar.
Great. Thank you so much, Melody. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today. It really is great to see all of you here interested in undergraduate research. And some of you might be wondering what are some of the advantages of getting involved in research here at Stanford. So for those of you who are maybe thinking that you want to go a little bit further than just your coursework, you're really interested in applying some of that knowledge, some of those fundamentals to real world problems, to grand challenges that we're experiencing all the time. If some of you really want to get more hands-on experience into what it's like to actually apply some of the skills you're learning in the classroom, and for those of you who maybe want some more career opportunities or looking for how to actually develop your skills as a researcher, as a scientist, as an engineer, all of these reasons are great reasons to get involved in research as an undergraduate here at Stanford. And through some of the questions that I've gotten from students like yourselves over the last few years, as well as from all of the questions, responses that we got from the RSVP form, something I want to point out is that there really is no wrong time to get involved in research here at Stanford. Okay, so whether you're a new student, this is your first quarter here at Stanford, or this is one of your last years at Stanford, there really is no wrong time. And our faculty really are eager to work with each and every one of you to give you some hands-on exposure to what it's like to do research. All right. So in material science and engineering specifically, we are really interested in a lot of these grand challenges that our society faces today. And as material scientists and engineers, what we're usually interested in doing is understanding the world around us and really trying to figure out how are the materials that we use on a daily basis, how do they really work? And how do they help us achieve some of these goals that you can see here? Engineering to ensure that humanity flourishes in cities of the future, or engineer effective yet affordable healthcare for all people. Okay, so these are some of the big picture goals that we as researchers in material science and engineering have. And the approach that I think is interesting amongst material scientists and engineers are that we're interested in studying these materials for all of these applications, both at the macro scale, where things are really, really large, all the way down to the atomic scale, where things are really, really small, and everything in between. Okay, and so we use these principles of studying how the structure of material impacts the performance or the properties of that material in order to tell us something about what it can be used for and how we can engineer systems to be better and better for the future. Okay, so we really combine both the science and the engineering in practice to solve some of these problems. So something that you might notice amongst several of these grand challenges is that they really do take an interdisciplinary approach. Okay, so we're combining concepts in biology, in chemistry, in physics, but also things in electronics, in mechanics, in computer science, in sort of bioengineering properties in medicine. All of these things have to come together really to solve a lot of these big picture problems, whether it's trying to address climate change, whether it's trying to create solutions for diseases and pandemics like we're experiencing right now, it really does take this sort of combined approach where I combine sort of key knowledge, key important findings in all of these different fields. And so some would consider material science and engineering to actually be sort of the unified discipline where we bring all these things together and try to solve these problems. Okay, so that's maybe some motivation as to why you might get involved in engineering research or research here at Stanford. Now, the second question that I think a lot of students have is, okay, well, I'm convinced I want to do research. How? How do I even get started? As a first-year student, as a frosh here at Stanford, can I even get involved in research? And the answer is resoundingly yes. Okay, so I want to spend a couple of minutes showing you a couple of things that might help you get started in your research journey. Okay, so this page is from our material science and engineering website. What it does is it shows an overview of some of the research topics that our faculty and our graduate students and postdocs and undergraduates work on in the department. So the first step, I think, to getting involved in research is figuring out what area of research really speaks to you. What big picture problems or what goals do you have, things that you really get excited about, passionate about, that you want to work on. So whether that's working with biomaterials and biointerfaces, working on materials for sustainability, working on how to characterize materials at the atomic scale, whichever area that really excites you is something that you should consider pursuing. So if you click on each of these areas, I'm just going to show the first one, biomaterials and biointerfaces. On our website, you can see a little bit of a description on what this research topic is all about. And what's really great is that if you scroll down to the bottom, there are several faculty members listed for who's working on each of these different research areas in our department. So if you go to one of these, I'm going to choose the Heilshorn group here. This will take you directly to one of the Stanford faculty members' research group web pages. Okay? So pretty much all faculty members at Stanford have web pages that look just like this. That outline what their research group does, who is in their research group, and what are some of the recent advances or things that they've been working on. So a couple of points to sort of navigate this kind of page. Usually on the home page, there's some sort of summary about what's going on in the group. And then at the top, there's usually a section related to research or sort of research topics. And if you click on that, you'll be able to see what some of the general research areas are in that particular group. So in the Heilshorn group, for example, they work on materials for regenerative medicine, protein engineering of biomimetic materials, engineered materials for human organoid culture, and design of materials for 3D bioprinting. So those are sort of the large topics of research in the Heilshorn group. And what you can do is you can read some of these descriptions, and you might be able to say, well, it turns out that I think the area of materials for regenerative medicine sounds really exciting. That's something that I would want to work on. What you can do next is you can go onto the Research Members tab, and you can see all of the people in that particular research group that are working on these different projects. Okay, so of course, Professor Heilshorn, the principal investigator, but then all of the doctoral students that you can see here, where they list what department they're currently getting their PhD in, and a brief description of what their research topic is, as well as an email address typically that you can reach out and contact them. You'll also see some of the postdoctoral scholars. So these are folks who have already received their PhD and are continuing to do research, as well as staff scientists and then undergraduate students as well. So what I encourage you guys to do is when you see all of these folks, and you maybe see someone that is working on something that you're passionate about or you're excited, or you think that's really, really interesting, I want to get involved. I encourage you to reach out to those folks. Not just the professor, not just the faculty member, but also reach out to your fellow undergrads who are working in the labs to see what is it like to be an undergraduate student in that group. Maybe reach out to some of the graduate students or postdocs who are working on some of these research areas that you think are really exciting or really interesting. So that's kind of a nutshell, but really I want to encourage you guys to check out each of these research group pages. I'll maybe show you one more. So a lot of students in our department, in addition to being interested in the intersection of materials and biology, are also really interested in the intersection between materials and sustainability. So if we go here, you might see, again, some research topics that are covered or investigated in our department. Some relevant research groups here. So I'm going to click on the CHU group, for example. And you'll see, again, the exact same thing where it has an overview of some of the research topics that the CHU group works on. You can actually go and see some of the research themes by clicking on this tab. So in this case, the CHU group uses X-ray characterization techniques to look at reactions in materials for energy. They're really interested in studying the different length scales in electrochemistry and looking at defects in interfaces of different types of devices, such as batteries and fuel cells. Okay. Similarly, you can also click on the People tab again and see who are all of the students and staff who work on each of these different projects. So I highly encourage you to scroll through and take a look and see what some of our graduate students or postdocs and our undergrads are all doing and see what kind of research areas are of interest to you. Okay, so now at this point you might see the value of research. You might know how to maybe start to narrow down some of your ideas. I would say that the third question that students have very frequently is, how do I get funded? Or how do I get credit? Or how do I join a group or get involved in some research program? And it turns out the answer is that there are many different options to get supported to do research here at Stanford. And so what some of the folks here in the panel have helped us put together is this great website on our page, which is specifically targeting how to get started in undergraduate research at Stanford. So if you scroll down here, again, the link is up at the top, mse.stanford.edu/UGresearch, and we'll share all of these links with you after the session. But you can see some information, again, on the value of getting involved in undergraduate research, how it can really strengthen your career. Again, whether you're interested in going into industry, going into entrepreneurship, going to graduate school, getting involved in research and development, science policy, you name it, having really critical problem-solving skills is essential. And research is a great way to practice that and get involved. So if you keep scrolling down, you'll see some research testimonials from some of our current and former undergraduates in the MatSci department. But you'll also find what I think is really useful, a list of opportunities on how to get involved in research. So this is sort of broken down into two areas. The first are opportunities here at Stanford. So we in the Material Science and Engineering Department offer a few different options on how to get involved in research as an undergraduate. One of our most popular programs is the MatSci RU program. It's a summer research activity where students stay for 10 weeks over the summer. They get involved in a research group and they undertake an independent project with the support of usually a graduate student or postdoctoral student mentor. Okay. We also have this new program that I want to highlight here, this MatSci undergraduate research grants, or the MatSci URGE program as we're calling it. This is a program that we are actually accepting applications right now. So for those of you who don't want to wait until the summer and maybe you want to get involved in research in the winter and spring quarters, we're accepting applications for you to consider a research group that you want to join and secure funding to do part-time research for both the winter and spring. Okay, so there's more information on this webpage, mse.stanford.edu/URG. You can see some of the program details, the eligibility, expectations, and then the information on how to apply. I'll just point out that this application is actually due next Friday, October 22nd. So if this is something of interest to you, I highly recommend you take a look at it sooner rather than later. So going back, you can see a few other ways to get involved in research. So students who are on federal work study, so if you're approved to get some assistance from the federal government to pay for your time here at Stanford, you can actually apply that federal work study to doing research in the lab. This is a really great opportunity to, spending the hours that you would have been working anyway and do something that's maybe a little bit more intellectually engaging and stimulating, all right? So there are ways to do that. And then there's also several other grants that VPUE provides for students like yourselves interested in getting involved in research. And some of those are listed here at the bottom. So whether that's to get involved in part-time research during the academic year, full-time research during the summer, or also to get some funds to go participate at a conference, to go share some of your research findings with other folks in your discipline. The second main area that I'll just briefly talk about is that there are also several great opportunities to get involved in research outside of Stanford. And this is something that I really encourage students to take advantage of. It not only gives you a window into what research is like at a different place outside of Stanford, usually you're getting brought in with students from all over the country who are also interested in doing research. And you get to sort of meet different folks and network and really expand some of your horizons on what doing research is really like. So there are several programs offered by the National Science Foundation, and you can actually search by different disciplines. So if you're interested in materials research, you can click on this link here at the site. There are also some really great programs provided by the Department of Energy where you can actually go work at a national lab for the summer or also during the academic year. So SLAC National Lab is just down the road. They participate every year in this SULI program that they offer, where they bring in students to participate in research over the summer and again during the academic year. There are some other ones that you can check out here, for example, the Amgen Scholars Program or the National Nanotechnology Program. And there's a few other databases where you can look up several other ways to get involved in research outside of Stanford. And all of these are ways to get funded to do research over the summer as well. And the last thing that I'll just point out on this website is that if you're still having trouble on how to really reach out to a faculty member, whether that's here at Stanford or maybe elsewhere, there are some really great tips and tricks that our graduate students and undergraduates have put together to help you guys navigate that process of, I want to get involved in research, but I don't really know how to ask or reach out to a professor. Okay? So it kind of goes through some of the things that we've talked about here today. But I think is really great is that it has a couple of templates here in tip number 3 for potentially how to set up an email to contact a faculty member and share that you are interested in getting involved in their research groups. Okay? So we really intend that this page on undergraduate research at Stanford is really a one-stop shop to getting involved and navigating the process of getting involved in research. Okay, so at this point, that's pretty much all I wanted to say, and I really thank you guys for your attention and your interest. What I'm now going to do is transition things over to a couple of our graduate students who are going to tell you a little bit more about the research areas in material science and engineering. And we have a couple of slides to kind of illustrate some of those points for you today.
I'll stand closer to the screen. Yeah. Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm a third year material science PhD. I'm in the Apple Lab in our department, and I'm going to be talking to you about the biomaterials and polymers section of research. And so basically a little overview is there are tons of materials. Everything in the world is made up of materials. Polymers are specifically like long chain-like molecules that can have a variety of properties. And so they can be hard, they can be soft, and one large thing is they can be biocompatible. So like proteins in your body can also be thought of as polymers. And so we have a ton of different areas of research that are all like soft matter, polymers, biomaterials related, and I can talk to you about a couple of those. So we have these are the groups over there that work on this, plus the Spakowitz group, but you can find these all on MatSci's website. But the basic categories are listed here. And so we have polymeric semiconductors, which is a really cool like away from biological application, where you can actually use polymers to conduct electricity. And this has a bunch of like interesting flexible electronics applications, like that could be used for more rugged smartphones or things like that. So that's one of them. Oh, you can't hear? Okay, is that good? Yeah. Mic skills, all right, cool. Hydrogels and biomaterials in general can be very useful. So what I personally work on is I do drug delivery in hydrogels. And so hydrogels are kind of like a similar modulus to the body's modulus. And so you can kind of insert them into the body and have interesting interplay between biological systems and your artificial systems. And so the Halshorn group does a whole lot of that. The Apple lab does a whole lot of that. That's the group that I'm in. Semiconductors you can find in the Soleo group. Let's see. We have brain, machine, and engineering cell interfaces. So that is Nick Malash's group does a lot of those. And so that's basically taking hard electronics and finding a way to put those into biological systems, which is interesting. We have tissue biomechanics. I think the Dauskart group does a lot of that. And basically, it's treating the body like a material. Like, okay, we're made of all of these weird polymer materials. How can we adapt those to make biomimetic things or things that work really well with your body? There's biophotonics. I don't know a ton about that, but that is mostly the Dione group, and they use like interesting light systems with biomaterials. Sahil's in that group. You can maybe say more. Neurotechnology. So this is kind of similar to the other one, where we want to interface with the body using outside materials and be able to like put things into the body that are not usually there. And the body usually has a reaction against that. So it's really important to engineer the materials to be compatible with that. And that is all the things I have on this slide. There's going to be a Q&A later if you want to ask more questions about that, I think. But for now, this is an overview of polymers and biomaterials in Stanford's Material Science Department.
Hi, my name is Devi, and as Melody mentioned, I'm a fourth-year student in the CHU group, and I'm going to be talking to you about materials for sustainability. And I want to preface this by saying, as Raj has mentioned, material science is very interdisciplinary, so some of the topics that are on this slide are also interface with topics that Olivia and Sahil are going to talk about. But the main goal for the materials for sustainability is, as we transition away from fossil fuels, we want to find new ways to generate energy and also ways to store that energy that we generate. So 3 of the main categories in this broad research area within our department are photovoltaics, catalysis, and batteries. So the first part, photovoltaics, is how we actually generate energy from the sun. And there's a lot of different research going on in this field here. There's different materials that people are looking at for new types of photovoltaics, like perovskites. And there's also people trying to optimize existing photovoltaic systems that we have, like silicon. So if you want to talk more about any of those research topics, feel free to ask me questions, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. The work that I mostly do is on batteries, though, and the batteries are used to store the energy that you generate with the photovoltaics. So there's also a lot of work being done here on different kinds of batteries, like lithium-ion batteries and flow batteries, and also work being done in new spaces in these fields, like nanotechnology for lithium-ion batteries. And finally, another topic is catalysis, where people are trying to generate fuel by instead splitting water into hydrogen or other sustainable fuels using electricity from the photovoltaics. So this is a summary of the different types of materials for sustainability that we do in our department, and I'm happy to answer more questions during the Q&A.
Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry. I'm Sahil. I'm a third-year PhD student in the Dione group. And so today I'm going to be talking about nanomaterials, which really encompasses a lot of what's happening in the material science department. So broadly, nanomaterials and nanoscience is all about understanding atomic scale and nanoscale characteristics of materials, and then determining how we can apply them in useful ways. So for example, a lot of people in our department department are interested in coming up with new ways to synthesize and fabricate different materials, and even like investigate their characteristics in new ways, whether that's like shooting like ultra fast laser pulses or X-rays at them to probe like phase transitions, or synthesizing new materials in large-scale manners and trying to integrate them together. Additionally, there's a lot of efforts in studying the electronic, photonic, and magnetic properties of materials. So that involves understanding how electrons behave in materials, or what happens when you shine light on a material, and then using those or that behavior to then design devices that you can use in like biological settings, or for LEDs, or to make nanoscale devices. And then there's also a lot of work on using computational and theoretical techniques to understand materials or even predict new materials. So that would be using lots of computer simulations, and you can do all sorts of things like predicting materials that don't even exist yet, or studying how you could simulate a real-world process rather than running the experiments that would take a lot of time, doing some calculations to then aid the experiments further on down the road. So there's a lot of nanomaterials-related research happening, and as you have heard many times today, a lot of material science research is very interdisciplinary, and you've probably even noticed that a lot of the names listed on this slide you saw on the slide before this and the slide before that too. So I hope you guys found these slides useful, and hopefully use it to find something in material science that really excites you as well. Thanks.